Baruch Hashem, we've got a magnificent scientific discovery that was made today. It had to do with intelligently and accurately and neutrally and truthfully observing what happened or what is happening and what was happening and what happened in creation as I was going through the day with certain objectives in mind and a plan of action that I was following and that was working and then was changed or that I updated basically when I noticed how things really were. So I'll explain this. I've explained this before. I seek to keep this short and sweet because it's important, and it has to do with paying very close attention to the heavens and earth plane, universal life environment around you, and certain very minute yet actually real details of what's going on around you in your psychic state, your physical and your metaphysical state of existence, and analyzing and wisely evaluating what's going on, so that what happens is that you clearly, intelligently sense what's going on, and you understand why what's going on is going on, and in addition to that, so that you completely can make things go on in the best possible way. And this is possible with something that is known as self-mastery, the practical application of wisdom, and being circumspect, and also exercising wise observation and very keen and neutral. Sometimes we have to actually almost neutralize our own perspective and observe for a minute what's actually happening, so to see what's really going on, and then to be able to understand or to see clearly, like through the visible level even of what's happening in reality, to the hidden sort of mechanical level of what's going on. Okay, so there's a thing that happened today when, listen, this thing that happened, these things that happened, they did not happen by chance or randomly or coincidentally. In fact, they were all part of a systematic, perfect universal order of the cycles of life, and also the movement of the heavenly bodies, and how the movement, say the daily movement of the sun and also the moon, from basically rising in the east to setting in the west, and how these heavenly bodies also, that's another thing that could be, oh, of course it's part of it. Of course, it's a combination of both, right? How these heavenly bodies are said to, and apparently they have some, like an attractive, energetic contribution that they make to what happens on the earth plane and with earth, human, and life activity. A very simple example of this are the tides that are said to be, if I recall correctly, in part generated by the moon. Okay, so there's proof and evidence for what I'm saying. So today, when I got up, first I headed toward the east for about like a half an hour, and then I headed west, because in my mind's eye and my imagination, and when I thought about where am I going today, right? What part of the mountains? In my mind's eye, I could see a certain place that's actually west of here. And I thought of going there, and I thought that's where I should go. I should go up there. I should go to that part of the country, scouting and everything. And then first I headed east actually, and then I just somehow the trajectory, it changed. And interesting, because that's the time when the moon actually rose up. It was probably on a, like above, right above, and then was heading west, and then that's when I also started heading west. Wow. And then in the remainder of the day, I traveled west, and I traveled in a way that was incumbent upon there being automatic like universal or cosmic support, also as part of a scientific experiment to see and to test a theory that I have, and that is actually correct till this day now, magnificently as it is. So I headed west, and when I was heading west, it all worked out. I got very far west of here, and then the moon set under the horizon sometime shortly before 5 p.m. And by about that time, I was actually, so wait a minute. 5 p.m., wait a second, what am I saying? 5 p.m., the summertime, ignore the summertime calculation, use the winter time all the time because that's the real time. Okay, so, well, that equates that it was at 4 p.m. Okay, but this still makes sense. So the moon was said to have set under the western horizon, so-called, according to astronomical data rendered by Google Gemini, right? And it's accurate astronomical data, though. The moon set in the west today at like a couple minutes before 5 p.m. You have to subtract an hour off of that so you get the real time, because the winter time is the time that it is all year round, okay? Okay. So, that having been said now, I was heading west, and then so actually then, that would be, no, because if it was 5:08, hold on. The moon set in the western horizon today at about a few minutes before 5 p.m. In reality, that's a few minutes before 4 p.m. So I actually traveled west for quite a while, and then I actually went, it's hilarious because I look like somebody who's standing talking on the phone. Yet actually I'm vlogging and publishing this to millions of people. Okay, so I headed west till about 5:14 p.m. today. An hour and 15 minutes after, I was heading west even an hour and 15 minutes after the moon set under the western horizon as viewed from this country in Central Europe. Okay, so the idea that if you were moving in the same direction as the heavenly bodies are moving before you, like the sun going overhead, heading west, and the moon also going overhead and heading west, that there's some type of a attractive, magnetic, and positively inspiring sort of attractive energy or a vibe that draws you in that direction if you sort of follow your instinct. It's actually correct. And then what happened was I thought, okay, look, what I should do is today I should travel in the same direction as the heavenly body does, to see if there's an attractive and a supportive energy that is contributed or that is exerted by the lunar body and the sun too also, if you sort of follow the trajectory into that area, that there's like a magnetic pull that way. And there is. Listen, this is not something that is dictational or that limits us. Rather, it's something that contributes. It's like knowing what way the wind is blowing and then being able to set your sail so that you can sail where you would like to sail by harnessing the wind in your sail. You determine the destiny with wisdom, okay? So that theory was correct. I headed west, and by the time that I got about 30 miles from here or so, west, I think it was more than that actually, it was like an hour and 15 minutes since the moon had set over the western horizon. And then I thought, okay, you know what I should do? I should head east again. For all we know, and this is the thing, they say that, well, now when the moon sets on the western horizon, like right now, it's actually moving under the earth over the dark, under the earth on the dark side of Earth. Okay. Whatever the case is, the exact actual position of where the moon really is beneath us, so to say. Whatever the case, the movements of it are being tracked accurately with astronomic data, even the data that's available from AI. If you type in or you dictate to AI like Google Gemini and say, where is the moon currently in the hemisphere based on it, being viewed from, this country, that country, like where I'm standing, where is the moon right now, where is it headed, and when is it setting, when it's rising, what time, etc. It'll tell you that. And it also would tell you that right now the moon is passing like beneath us, quote unquote, on the dark side, or I guess the light side then, of Earth, and heading east again, because tomorrow it's going to rise in the east again at like 4 in the morning or something. So then I thought, okay, once the moon starts heading east again, I'll head east again and I'll see how it works. And it should be that I'm automatically supported in my movement because there's this way that energy moves a certain way and the heavenly bodies seem to move the same way too. Technically, I actually don't have anything that says that I'm not correct with my theory, because that's what I did. I went west all day till the moon set on the western horizon, and an hour and 15 minutes after it was under the horizon, I started to head east again, while technically, from my position, the moon is in fact heading east again underneath the earth, quote unquote, and actually going to rise in the east again in a couple of hours in like 4 in the morning. And my theory was that if I move that way, the same way, following the trajectory, I should be automatically supported, and there should be a positive, like an increase, additional support, and it's somehow in harmony with how things are moving in the cosmos, in the universe. Well, technically I'm correct, because I did manage to go west while the moon went west, even physically, till it set, and then to return east after the moon set, an hour and a half, hour and 15 under the horizon, and technically would be heading toward the east again, as related to where I was. So there's nothing that negates my theory. What did happen, and this is the detail of what happened about 5:15, so that would have been at, in real time, that would have been 4:15. And the moon was actually setting on the western horizon here, viewed from Central Europe. It was setting, it's set at like shortly before 4 p.m. And what was I doing? Shortly before 4 p.m., it's set. Okay. So that's actually 5 p.m. in false time reading in summertime. And then at 5:15, okay, hold on a second. Okay, using the summertime calculation, at shortly before 5 p.m., the moon set in the western horizon. It went below the horizon, so-called. In addition to that, then I returned and started heading east again. Right, I headed east again at 5:15, so like 20 minutes after the moon. Am I correct here? Yeah, so something like 20 minutes after the moon set beneath the western horizon, I stopped going west and I started heading east again. My journey was prosperous. So the crux of this was the thing that I observed that's like a scientific discovery is that at about, like literally between about 5:09 p.m. and 5:15, say between 5:03 p.m. and 5:15 p.m., two things happened. I was hitchhiking, and out of all the cars that went by, 2 cars stopped, and 2 people stopped and were courteous and asked, where would you like to go? I said, oh, I'm heading west. I said, oh no, I'm going east, the opposite direction. This happened twice in a row, and this between about 5:03 p.m. and 5:15 p.m. today. At that point, as I was observing this happening, well, I intended to keep going west, but I had a hunch that I should go east because that's where things are going now. Even the moon is returning and heading toward east gradually, right? I noticed something, and I had this hunch that it is not a coincidence that both of these people that stopped and asked me what way I would like to go, they were both heading east. They were not heading west. It's as if the destiny of like what way to go and what way even opened up to go was in not west any longer. Rather, it was literally heading east. Now, to be a little more precise, if we're to think that based on like the moon is passing over you and then it's passing to the west, you follow the direction of it, there's a positive supporting, expediting, energetic trail that you're riding on. Yeah, when it sets on the western horizon, it takes a while, technically, however or whatever that works or how it works, till it actually basically like passes your position again and then passes you toward the east and is heading east in front of you or east of you. It takes a long while. It's not like in 15 minutes. But generally, my theory and my expectation of what would happen compared to, listen, here's how you actually evaluate the data and gain, is that my expectation, my wisely formulated theory and like prediction, right? So the similarity between my prediction of what would happen, what I expected to happen, and what I had a hunch about actually ultimately panned out or happened. Because nobody stopped their car and said, oh yeah, sure, I'm heading west. You want to go west? Sure, fine. No, it was east, northeast. And that's the exact direction that the moon is heading in, basically, at that time. It wasn't heading, it was actually headed to the northeast. No, hold on, to the northwest, but generally speaking, it was over the horizon now and making its way to start passing under the earth, quote unquote, and head west again. And at that, maybe it was still ahead of us in the west, maybe it wasn't underneath us yet, but the journey went on towards the west. The east again. And why this makes sense is because that's what I expected would happen. And then look at this though. What we wisely expected and thought would happen, according to our wise theory, right? What actually happened is that after the moon set in the western horizon, literally a couple minutes afterwards, the only possibilities of travel from a cosmically, universally available external source that could be regarded as being totally random, yet also in accordance with the universal order of how things work systematically, it all was aimed to the east. There's a significance to this. It is significant. And then what I did was this. After these two cars stopped and these people said they're going like northeast or east, not west, right? I thought for about a minute or two and I realized, you know what? This looks to me like the universal movement of energy that also moves the heavenly bodies from the sun and the moon rising, the sun rising in the morning from the east, going to the west, the sun rising, the moon rising in the east. Based on the time of year, it rises in the east in the morning or in the nighttime, goes to the west. Based on how and whatever makes that and those heavenly bodies, including the sun and the moon, move that way, things seem to be moving west again. So that's what I did. I didn't go, things are moving east again, not west. So at 5:15 p.m. after these two cars stopped and they were both heading east and not west, I got this hunch and I thought, okay, look, maybe that's where the energy is moving now. And it's no longer going west, but it's going east. And also the moon will be going east soon too. There's some type of a rhythm to that. So then I actually went and I headed east again. And then I made it home, and I've been at home for a couple hours. And I've been analyzing this because it seems to me that we've discovered something about how even physical life and like earth, human, and life activity, real things on the face of this earth plane with physical mass, humans, oceans, land mass, everything is quote unquote supported in moving a certain direction during the day from sunrise to sunset, or from sunrise in the east in the morning till sunset in the west in the evening, or moonrise in the east to moon setting in the west in the evening, or whatever it is based on the time of the year. And that there is some type of energetic expediting of moving in the same way that the heavenly bodies move during the day. This is not the first time this has happened. This has happened before. It's happened many times, where at the beginnings of me discovering this, I was traveling, and I'm standing in the country in the mountains at this little this little road, and I'm standing there and I'm thinking, should I go this way or should I go that way? Should I go east or west? Where am I going? Right? And sure enough, I'm standing there and I'm like going back and forth. I'm thinking, should I go this way or should I go that way? What mountain panorama looks more beautiful to me right now? What mountain view looks better? That one or that one, right? And so then I went west, and it was in the early evening. The sun was heading to the west to set, and I went west, and it worked. And then I think later, so many journeys, so many magnificent, miraculous adventures, and research though. Look into the details and examine things closely and be neutrally, intelligently, keenly receptive to what's going on in your environment, because you make discoveries and see more of the details of how everything actually works, and that gives you additional knowledge and wisdom and more operational capability. Because, for example, think about this for a minute. If you get up, right, say your praises, say your prayers, right, and then you head out, say, a certain direction during the day. What if the direction that you head out in, even like whether you go west or east, etc., based on what way the heavenly bodies are moving, like during the day, there's a reason why they're moving that way too. See, it's not just that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west every day. There's an energetic programming or something in God's universe that makes it so that the sun even rises in the east and sets in the west. There's already something behind that that's making that rhythm take place. And it's moving a physical, a star, a massive star that's massive, that's also physical matter and so on, in a certain pattern. So that same pattern of movement seems to be perpetuous for us too on Earth. Now, I will probably do it tomorrow again. And this is actually interesting because I've done this before, where I've had an impulse, an idea, a feeling, a positive inspiration, and linked to, like, while I was thinking about where to go during the day, my imagination had sort of inspired me to go that way. And in my mind's eye, it felt positively attractive. And so I went that way, and I got there and I had a great time. And while I thought about going the other way, notice, at this very moment, I'm physically walking to the east now. And I am almost certain that it's because either underneath us, whatever 1,000 miles through the landmass and then outer space beneath us, apparently, Or however it's being mapped though, because that moon or whatever, the lunar body, it does pop up in the east. How it gets there? Apparently it goes underneath the earth, they say. Whatever the case may be, it's no coincidence that I'm heading east right now. I'm literally heading due east right now, as I'm just taking a casual, safe walk. There's a reason for this. There's an energetic, attractive, positively propelling sort of a inclination of energy to move a certain way during the days. Even having, and how it moves physical mass easier. You don't have to, yet you can, and it feels positively inspiring. You follow that impulse and it turns out to be good. There's a system to this. So pay close attention, investigate and observe the details of how things work in life. Everything ranging from your imagination, how you seem to have what is that called? Even how you feel inspired or not, right? There's literally, if you just picture yourself standing in a valley, okay? There's mountains to the east, there's mountains to the north. There's mountains to the west, there's mountains to the south. You're literally looking, scanning the horizon, and for some reason it feels better or more attractive or positively attractive to go in a certain physical direction at certain time during the day. This is not a coincidence. There is a pattern to the movement of physical matter, even on the earth plane. It seems to be indicated by how the heavenly bodies move over and apparently under the earth plane. And an automatic sort of an expediting or a positively, or automatically, what do you call that? Positively, automatically uplifting and a magical and a sort of a attractive vibrational sensation in following that particular attractive vibe of going that way. And it turns out that